What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Sun Belt Syndicate. As always, brought to you in part by collegefootballdogs.com as we pick up the pace on all the college football action that's set to come your way now that baseball season is officially over for the Sun Belt and obviously soon wrapping up overall. Part of Dog TV there as well, which is allowing us to bring this to you. Myself, Don Corsetto, Mr. Seth Johnson, and down below, Marv Dickens. We are probably, in all likelihood, taking a little hiatus after this as we wrap up baseball season. But we do also want to mention, even further below Marv there on screen, our sponsor, W Energy. They're picking up the pace, just like collegefootballdogs.com, as they're coming out with canned beverages, not just the powder you have to make yourself. They've got cans now. You can order those online through their website. There's been some people seeing the price and thinking it's crazy. It's not a price per can. It's a price for 12-pack. So if you see like $30 or whatever it is, it's different than a one can. They only show you a picture of one can on the website. So some confusion there from some customers I've seen. Wanted to let you guys know that one can does not cost $30 because even as a sponsor, guys, I ain't paying $30 for an energy drink.
Hey, it should cost $30. That's some good energy.
True. Oh, and before we get too far along, obviously we have to say hello.
Hello,
Artie.
Last time
For the season. Last time.
season.
Hey, Dom, I want to clarify something. We might be taking a break, but baseball season never ends.
No.
True. Yeah. We have a question here for Seth. We'll refrain from actually answering that one. But
what was that?
Slightly below average.
Yeah. We did nickname him the Big Johnson earlier this season. So,
God, who was that?
I'm sure it's somebody you knew, right?
I have no idea who it was.
It says Cam Avery.
I have no idea.
It's a burner. Hey, we're good enough to have burner accounts going after Seth on the show now. So we've made it. We have officially made it. Already saying congrats, Dunn, on finishing the 5 mile. I used to hate waking up and running that every morning. Yeah. Already being in the military, he's definitely got some running in him, or has in his previous days. For those that don't know what he's talking about, I ran a race here called Running to the Bulls. It's probably one of the cooler names in Durham. So,
hey, Dom, give yourself some credit. You were the fastest finisher from home plate to the outfield wall.
Yeah. Well, so you come in. That's what I was trying to describe on text to you guys. It's weird. You come in at the warning track as like all the way out in the outfield on the first baseline. You run it all the way around to somewhere between third and home plate on the warning track area. So you go all the way around. 39 seconds, Phil. Actually, it's 38 point something. They rounded up because everyone had 39 seconds. Second place was 40.
You were the fastest finisher. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I saved it for the end. I'm sure everyone was like, who's this a-hole coming up from behind and trying to pass all these people? I passed I'm not kidding when I tell you I probably passed 30 people on that warning track, though. So it felt good.
You win?
Respect, if any.
The only thing to win. We need to have Dom go to Atlanta and race the Freeze. Is that the guy's name that races everybody?
Yeah.
On the track?
Oh, I've wanted to do that so bad. I went to, so that was at the old Durham Bulls ballpark that still exists. They play like high school games and stuff in there now. At the new Durham Bulls ballpark, which Marv and I have been to a few times, they do like a race, except they just like have, I think it's the mascot like on the screen in the outfield, and he kind of races beside you, and they can turn him up or turn him down. I've always wanted to do that just to see if I can go out there and do it impressively in front of that many people. So yeah, it was fun. Not the best distance runner. If you can remember from that thing I sent you, it's like, yeah, you're number one, but like your overall time was the worst out of that whole list.
Bro, you ran like a 7-minute a mile pace. Like, you're good.
Yeah, it was I think it was like just north of like 7.5 minutes. So yeah, it's fine. Well, enough of the running talk. Oh, we do have to mention this. We've got merch on the College Football Dogs website. If you want a Sun Belt Syndicate polo in, I think it's 4 colors, right? I think there's 2 two colors, two shades of gray, a black and a white, with our logo right here on the chest pocket. It's not pocket, but I like this one. And then we've also got a shirt where it's just huge right in the middle. I like the shirt. I'm going to be getting the shirt and definitely some polos to wear on the show. So yeah, collegefootballdogs.com. If you want to find it on the website, go to more, and then it'll say team store, and our stuff is available there now. We'll be adding more stuff too, but we're starting off with a polo and a t-shirt. So yeah, I'm going to be purchasing soon.
Paying ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you having
Absolutely.
to purchase the shirt?
Oh yeah, I'm just like everybody else. Since we're all starting up together, there's no. Well, I mean, the whole website's giving out a deal to everyone. Unfortunately, I don't get anything even more than that. You would think so, right? Like 25%, but they're only giving us like the 10 everybody else is getting, I think. But we'll see. We'll see. Let's start this thing up. I'm going to move us to how we had it before. That way comments don't block anybody. There we go. I'm going to take this banner off the top here so we don't block Marv. There we go. All right. So that's a wrap, guys. And I put a little sad face for those that are listening more than they're viewing, because no matter what we think of all these teams before regionals started, I think all of us were hoping for at least one team to follow into the supers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we have 4 cracks at it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think Coastal. Yeah, I think Coastal kind of proved. We were all a little wondering how Coastal got in, but I think they showed that they belong.
Yeah.
I think all four teams did.
Yeah, I also think that Vandy was super disappointing in that regional.
Yes.
They were bad.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. We have a Vandy fan, if you can believe it, a Vandy fan of football too. I don't know where those exist usually, but we have one in our group. He was the one that was commenting a lot last time before the regionals as we previewed them, Chris. And he was surprised as well, but he did let me know that there were some injuries and some guys with like food poisoning apparently on the team. So if you want to use that as an excuse about why they had such a poor performance, maybe. But it did sound like they weren't at 100%. And I do want to shout out Artie Cash saying he says, I'm getting one. So yeah, we definitely appreciate that. If I start getting any good deals, Artie's going to be the first guy to get it. Maybe the only one.
We should have had shirts made with our faces on them, like on the promotional thing for the 3B beginner. That would have been terrible but funny.
We'll work on one of those. It was really popular like this season with NIL stuff for people to put like their player pictures all over their shirts, like the old school like rap albums. We should do something like that for the podcast. Wear our own T-shirts, like a band shirt when we're doing the show. Just make it cringy. Randy is saying Chris picked Vanderbilt to go into Clemson and win. No pass given. Yeah. That would have been a tough thing after we've seen how good Clemson is, but he does seem to remember that some people calling Southern Miss to give Tennessee a fight. Well, they started off okay in the beginning of the game.
Yeah, that's a shot at me.
Yeah. Well, I thought
they had the potential.
It's like you said, it's got the storyline from last year where they wanted retribution and revenge, right? Marv, what were you saying?
I said they had the potential to do it.
Yep.
Didn't happen. I mean, Tennessee's the number 1 seed for a reason.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious after how they play. Man, they just kept jacking home runs.
Hey, watch out for Evansville. They're coming.
Yeah. Big old Chris. That's the boy, Seth. Old Globe said, "What's up, brother, man?"
Seth paid people to come on the podcast tonight.
Yeah, he's given out NIL deals to fans so that
I don't know who these losers are.
He's taking that W Energy money and he's paying people.
Yeah. Randy says no shots given. Southern Miss is a good team, just not better than Tennessee right now is all. Yeah, I mean Tennessee is pretty obviously one of the best teams in the country. We knew that going in, but were they going to falter with all the pressure playing at home trying to win? They didn't falter. That's the plain and simple fact of it. Do we want to talk about some of those scores before we jump into kind of looking at each team, how they did this season? I mean, we had, like you said, Seth, all 4 teams get to a regional final. Now, all 4 teams would have had to win 2 in a row to move on. But you get there. I mean, it's the only conference that had 4 teams in regional finals, believe it or not.
I think Louisiana, even though everybody finished with the same record, I think Louisiana might have been, a little bit more of impressive than the way everybody else. I mean, across the board, I think it was pretty even, but for them to go into that regional, at least take, 2 out of there, says a lot.
Yeah, I think JMU played well in a
JMU should have won. JMU should have been in the winners bracket to begin with.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, JMU played well in that regional. I think they probably had the softest or maybe easiest regional of any team, but they played really well.
Yeah, they did. Every
they
time
were down to their last strike.
They
should have won the first game, been in the winners bracket.
Yeah, but that was, if I'm not mistaken, we all agreed that they had the best likelihood to move on, right?
Right.
I thought they did. I mean, I'm still not super impressed with NC State. I think NC State goes to Georgia and gets beat pretty bad. I don't know if they win a game. Probably eat my words. And then, like I said, Coastal. I think Coastal benefited from Vandy not being as good as people might have thought they would have played. I mean, you can chalk it up to whatever you want to chalk it up to, but Vandy's been there for a while, right? They're a great program. I think they benefited from that because I think Vandy lost 2 games in a row. They bounced pretty quick.
Yeah,
they got blasted too, I believe.
I think you're right.
Yeah, they did not look good whatsoever, really. Randy's saying, did I hear a double down against Tennessee? What, saying to watch out for Evansville? He likes it.
Listen, I watched a lot of that Greenville regional. I mean, born and raised in Greenville. As a kid, I used to ride my bike to it wasn't Keith LeClaire Stadium at that point, but I used to ride my bike there, sit in the jungle, which is the outfield. They didn't charge for admission back in the day, and that's where all the drunks hung out. So it was like a fun place to be when you're like 12, 13, 14 years old because it was lively to say the least. And let's face it, East Carolina's got a great program. I mean, they've been top 25 for a decade now. Evansville walked in there and they look like the best team from the very first game. So it would not shock me if they go to Tennessee and take a game. Not at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and at this point, they're riding on cloud 9, right? So
house money, man. Just
yeah.
Throw it on the table and see what happens.
Yeah, very true. Cam Avery is back saying best podcast around the globe. Well, we know we've been the hottest Sunbelt baseball podcast you've got out there. So,
who is this guy? We
got
fans now, fellas.
Yep. Injuries or not, Vanderbilt losing to High Point is unacceptable.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't disagree, especially with where you think both of those teams are, right? High Point's, backing in a little bit there. Good season, but not a team that you think would give Vandy any trouble, and they did. It would shock me, he says, if Evansville takes one. Already saying all of Rhode Island is disappointed as well. Yeah, Bryant, that was going to be rough. They were in the 200s, right, for RPI and strength of schedule?
They were. I can't say I watched one of their any of their games. I will say Wofford. I don't know if you guys watched Wofford. Wofford played really good baseball in that regional.
Yeah, they did.
That
was a heck of a finish, LSU and Carolina.
Yeah, they had LSU down for a very long portion of that baseball game. I think they had a freshman pitcher that threw 7 innings, maybe gave up 3-4 hits, 1 run. Like the kid pitched a gem.
Dang, interesting. I will be honest, I did not watch any of the Wofford games. Interestingly enough, I watched a lot of that regional because it was right here down the road for me. I was hoping to get to one of the games, but ticket prices became insane once UNC started playing LSU. It was like, nah, I can't afford $125 per ticket for a family of 3. So ain't happening. And then I actually had a ticket to go to James Madison versus South Carolina was their first game, right? I know they played them twice, but the first game. Yeah, and I didn't get to make it. Being in the middle of a move. Actually, the other thing is, this may be the last time that I am in this setup for a show. So the new digs are coming, and I don't know what that holds for what this will look like behind me. Obviously, that's not that important for everybody else, but yeah, it'll be some kind of new setup when I return to doing this with you guys or whoever else, because football podcast got to be starting up soon. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess anything else? I mean, like you said, I think Louisiana was really good overall. I mean, I think, I don't know, I guess you can say you could be disappointed a little bit, but I mean, they had a hell of a run.
I think a month and a half ago, the 4 teams that made it, I think we would have been not surprised at 2, and we've been pretty shocked at 2. So, well, I'm sorry. No, Coastal, we would have all been okay with 3, but James Madison get in would definitely been a shock. So yeah, I think it was kind of the way we thought it would finish. I think towards the end we weren't sure about Coastal anymore, but I think Coastal and JMU sneaking in definitely represented. And I don't think they, we thought they were going to be a little bit below the bottom getting into the tournament, but I think everybody showed up a little bit and represented.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely don't think. I mean, you're a little disappointed after Friday's games, right? What did we go 1-3 overall? You're like, oh man, we don't look good. But everybody bounced right back, and like I said, got into all the regional finals. So, we got 5 into the regionals in general last year. Got 4 in who make it to the regional final. 2 really good, solid years for the Sun Belt, especially when we questioned whether Coastal would be in. We questioned, just like Seth just said, about James Madison possibly kind of backing in a little bit. I don't know. Maybe they were thought of to be more into the field than Coastal was. I mean, you could probably make that argument. I don't know because their RPI.
I think I said this last week, but going into next year, I think we've all learned RPI is a very key factor in this whole situation.
Hey, so Seth, riddle me this: why was James Madison's RPI so high? Who did they beat? What was the one team they had?
Arkansas,
who got knocked out.
How'd Arkansas do?
Got knocked out.
Not digging on Arkansas there.
They beat Virginia Tech, who did not even make the tournament.
Yeah.
They swept App, who didn't even sniff the tournament. I mean, I don't get it, man. I just don't get it.
App took 2 from High Point, who went to the tournament, took 3 out of 4 from Coastal, but I know. So at the end of the day, I think if you rewind everything, right? I think if Louisiana wouldn't have got bounced so early in the tournament, they probably host. I would have said that. And if they host, maybe they make it to a super. 4 teams in, absolutely fantastic. Do we wish one of them would have made a super? 100%. Were there 2 teams that got in that maybe we didn't feel were that great? Yeah, but did they represent the league very well? They did. So
yeah.
I think at the end of the year, you look back and you're like, Sun Belt's a pretty damn good baseball conference.
Yeah, we said that at the beginning of the year. I don't think we're sitting here at the end of the year shocked by anything. Would we have wanted a little more? Yeah, but did we get enough out of what we thought we would? Yeah. So I think getting 4 into a tournament is, says a lot.
I do too.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
I just I think, benchmark going forward is 4 teams in. I think as a conference, maybe overachieving would be having a team host a regional and then make it to a super, and like the sky being the limits, having a team go to Omaha. But this conference is a really good baseball conference, and as we continue to consolidate teams and conferences, maybe we're not the 4th overall RPI because you're gonna have the big 4, but we're not a bad conference of baseball at all. We need our respect.
Yeah. No doubt about it. I think that's kind of, we've got some comments coming in. We'll get to them in just a sec. But before we do that, it's like you said, we've got teams that were questionable to get in. And like Coastal being 7th in the conference before the conference tournament, not doing phenomenally well there, and then still getting into the tournament and doing very well overall. It's like you said, that shows the strength, right? I think you could have possibly you may even put Georgia State in to a regional, and they could have won at least 1 game. Anybody below that, I think the only teams that would have struggled in any regional would have been, the bottom 4 that we'll get to here, or the bottom 3, because I just included Georgia State in there.
Yeah, but I think You put Georgia Southern into that Vanderbilt regional. They were. I think they could have competed.
I agree.
You know, like I said, App beat Coastal 3 out of 4 times, beat High Point. They could probably win a game in a regional, but once again, the teams that got in, whether or not we think they all deserve to be there. I mean, last week on the podcast, I was an asshole and kept bringing up Coastal doesn't deserve to be in the tournament. I still believe they didn't, but they represented well. But and you take them out and put in a Southern or an App or Troy.
Yep.
I think the result's the same.
Yeah. I think maybe there's 4 teams that we would say we wouldn't trust. You know, Marshall, Arkansas State, Monroe, and South
Texas
Alabama.
State.
Yeah, Texas State.
Any of those.
Anybody else above that, you could stick into that Raleigh regional. I think you almost get the same result, if not better.
I agree.
Yeah. Which is funny because Texas State goes 36-23 overall last year and is a regional team without a doubt, right? This year, they obviously didn't meet expectations, as Artie has let us know throughout the season. But before the season started, I thought we'd all see them back up there again. Very much likely to be, have a chance to get in there. Artie saying good luck with the move. Yeah, Artie and I probably both know how well moving goes. Artie being in the military himself and me being
I have no idea.
And this guy on screen who does it for a living, driving all over crazy parts of the country, all the way to Utah in the past and everything. So that's a traveling, man. We're going to put a sponsorship on the side of the truck for Sunbelt.
Talk to Scotty. We got to get some money.
Yeah.
Hey, once you get it, let me know because I need some too.
I got to spread the good word here. But Randy wants to know if we intro with Sexy Red and I missed it. Nope. We did not. She will never be a featured artist on this show. I can tell you that. Her music is god awful. But he is agreeing with us that the RPI is a broken system in his humble opinion. I don't think you need to be humble with that one. I think we all agree that the RPI is way too big of a metric. I've heard that there's something else called like the FPI, or there's something else currently being used that is helping transition away from the RPI, because the RPI leans, how did they describe it? It leans too heavily on what you do and the team that you're playing does, like, immediately. I don't think it, however they described it, essentially it doesn't take a good look at the long picture, right? So like you said, Arkansas win for James Madison is kind of, they're given a lot of points in that RPI system immediately. And then it takes a long time to kind of dwindle that down, which obviously did not happen for JMU in a good way because they end up making regionals, but everybody else is wondering why or how. They were greatly rewarded for that early season victory over a top ranked team at that point. Already saying, and no Pac-12 next year, greatly diminished Big 12, and WAC has collapsed. Sunbelt on the rise in football and baseball. The only thing that is weird is I think the Big 10 becomes stronger in baseball, right? Because they're adding those 2 teams from out west who are typically pretty good to very good baseball programs. So Big 10 does get stronger out of all the ones you just mentioned. Big 10 probably does jump up a little bit. I think they still get too much respect in general, but obviously next year that respect might be earned a little bit. The SEC continues to get stronger. Like you said, diminishing with the Big 12, but Texas and Oklahoma, 2 of the mainstays in Big 12 baseball, are now jumping into the SEC. I think the crazy part is you saw 11 SEC teams get in this year. What are we going to see? 13 next year? I mean,
as long as you're finishing not even halfway, as long as you're finishing the top, 3 quarters, you should be in the SEC at least.
Yeah. But how many of them are in supers?
Either ACC or SEC. I think like 7 of the 8 are hosting.
5 out of the 11 are in supers. So 50, a little less than 50% survival rate.
Yeah, which is surprising because of how much they say that how good they are quality wise. Which, I mean, I'm not doubting they probably are the best baseball conference. Are they far superior is the question. And I don't think that's necessarily the case.
You can make the argument between them and the ACC, but I think right now you'll have to say that, yeah, they are.
Yeah. I definitely think they're number one. I just don't know if it's like them and then ACC and then other people. I think it might be them, ACC, a couple other teams real close to here, and then there's a lot of drop off after that. As far as the entire conference picture, not talking about the top teams. The top teams alone are kind of a different story, but you're looking at top to bottom of a conference. I think that's where you say, you got to take the bad teams in with that too. Speaking of bad teams, unfortunately, Arkansas State Red Wolves were one of them this year. Went 21-32-1. That gave them a 7-22-1 record within the conference itself. At one point in time, they did win 8 straight. Actually, that was to start the season, right? That was when we all thought, what the heck's going on?
Yeah.
Then they went 13-32-1.
Yeah.
They were who we thought they were.
There, Marv. Good quick math. So they did have a long of 6-game losing streak, and that happened at the end of the season. So, and we can debate this if people got thoughts and opinions. They think I was the one who specifically listed each team's best win and worst loss. So Seth and Marv may have differing opinions than what you're seeing graphically on the screen. But I did list their best win, an 11-8 victory over the Ragin' Cajuns, obviously with how well they did as a 40-win team making it to the regionals. I thought that's Arkansas State's most prolific win. And their worst loss, 8-4 at home versus Central Arkansas. And again, these are opinionated things because there might have lost to a team worse than Arkansas or Central Arkansas. However, this is a team that's close by to you, who you don't think should ever beat you in any sport, and you are hosting them in your home facility, and you lose 8-4. So to me, that's one of those worst losses. It's not incredibly embarrassing or anything like that, but it's one of those ones that you just can't really avoid. It's like I don't know, Louisiana losing to southeastern Louisiana, or App State losing to
Lenore Ryan.
Yeah, somebody like that. Somebody local who's supposed to be a tune-up game, or a game to get an easy W and bring some fans in, and you didn't win it. I don't know if you guys are pulling up roster or schedules as we're doing this either to see what else you've got, but I think these first couple teams are going to be kind of fast to go through because they didn't have a postseason to talk about, and so we're kind of talking about biggest win and loss, and I don't know if their fans even have put that much effort into figuring out what that might be.
No, I think that's fair.
Yep. All right. So we'll move on to the next one here. Marshall Thundering Herd finished with an overall record of 18-37. Yeah. Just 9-21 within the conference. Their longest win streak only consisted of 2 games. Yikes. That's going to be the tough spot there. They had some good pitchers, as we saw with Rice Blevins coming onto the show. One of the best pitchers in the conference happens to be on Marshall's roster. However, they're just not fully loaded with enough of them. They did go on a 7-game losing streak, which I don't do this for every team. I did spell this one out because as bad as Marshall is, you think, well, if they lost to, Louisiana and Southern Miss in a row, that's 6, that's not surprising. However, these were games that when they happen with where Marshall was, could have made a big difference. Losing and getting swept by ODU, Georgia Southern before also losing the 7th game to East Kentucky University. So not the biggest powerhouses to lose to. Obviously, Georgia Southern doing pretty good there in that one. I guess I had their best win as an 11-7 victory at James Madison. That was kind of the turning point. They had a couple that I could have listed. I went with the fact that they won one on the road against a team that ended up in the regionals. So someone wants to find one they think is better, then go ahead. If they would have beaten West Virginia, I would have had that because, again, it's kind of like the same one we just talked about with Arkansas State and Central Arkansas. That's the one you want to win, right? Those are hated rivals from a long time ago. And West Virginia is kind of like UNC App State, all the thing. You don't want that team to beat you because you don't want them able to talk the trash. So their worst loss is the 15-0 loss to that very West Virginia team. Anybody think they're going to have some kind of massive turnaround going into next year? Or you think there's just too much here that needs to be worked on?
They got the pitching. They got a few bats, but I think they're 3 or 4 pieces away from being able to even compete in the middle of the pack, I believe.
Yeah, I would agree. In my opinion, they have the best pitcher in the conference. Bryce is absolute stud. It's a, in my thought process, it's a robbery for the guy that won the most pitchers of the week, not to be named the conference pitcher of the year. Um, you need another one of him, and you need some bats. I think their run support just wasn't great. New stadium's nice. I would love to see them get it together, but I'm going to agree with Seth. They're 4 or 5 major pieces away from competing for a middle of the pack spot.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think there's too much that's needed here. And if you look back through the history of Marshall baseball, it's never been an extremely talented program, unfortunately, for them. Like you said, the new stadium is a big tool for recruiting, and hopefully that helps get some guys. But the other recruiting tool could be the fact that you're in one of the better baseball conferences. The bad part to that recruiting tool is you've got a long way to go to catch up to the guys at the top. So,
hey, if Bryce wants to transfer, somebody get him Kermit's number.
Yeah. No
we'll take him in Boone in a heartbeat.
You know what wouldn't surprise me? We don't have any background information, so I'm just pure speculating. He said he was recruited by Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
Look where Kentucky got this year. The fact that, hey, now he's a big name. Hey, now NIL. Now, hey, why don't you come back to the spot you were originally looking at?
I think when he was on the podcast, he was very convincing in saying that Huntington's home. Which goes, listen, I got a ton of respect for that. I mean, we had this NIL transfer debate. I think it's garbage. I think it's I understand why it's there, but we all have kids, right? Like if my kid commits to a college, you're going there for 4 years. I don't give a crap what happens. Like you're got to be a man of your word. You got to fall in love with the staff, the program, and the place. And if money is the only thing that makes you leave, then I can tell you what the rest of your life's going to look like.
Yep.
Happy.
No, because for most of those kids, it doesn't pay out at the end. You get a one-time payment, and it doesn't pay out at the end.
Right.
So if money's nice. Don't get me wrong, but if that's the only thing you're chasing, man, you're never going to be happy.
I'd also say look no further than a few of these football players who said they were promised something specific, and once they got there, they weren't paid out in full. It's happened at Texas A&M. That's why you've seen some of those kids transfer out. So empty promises do exist here, as bad as it is to hear that. Some of these kids need to realize you need to be able to trust the person who's telling you they're going to give you something, that it's going to actually happen.
Now, listen, that's backs up on that. If you sign with the program and the coach you fell in love with leaves, then that's a whole
different story.
That's a whole nother story. But yeah, if the head coach is still there and you bought into everything they were saying and you have a great season, someone's like, hey, man, why don't you come over here? We'll give you a little bit of money, and shit doesn't work out, then
yep.
It's on you, bro.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hopefully ULM can have some of those kids stick around because they had some promising games, as we see here. We'll change it up. We'll go a different direction here. A best win. Start off with that 11-3 victory over Coastal Carolina. Probably not the best victory when you look back now and see where Coastal ended up as far as overall, but they did get to the regional, so you do hang your hat on that. But the other reason I listed this specifically as their best win is because this started the series. So when they win that first game 11-3, you're thinking, hey, man, we got a chance to take out Coastal Carolina down here at home. We have a shot. Unfortunately for them, they lost the remaining 2 games to Coastal Carolina because they woke the hell up after that loss. But I did have that listed as their best win. As far as their worst loss, hey, look at that team. This seems familiar. It is Central Arkansas again. And that one is kind of because – yet again, that's maybe a team that you think lesser of. It's not that far from Monroe as far as like regionality goes. So you bring them into your home stadium and you lose 11-4. So, I'm not putting Central Arkansas on the pedestal of the rest of the Sun Belt teams because they're not in the Sun Belt. So, you losing 11-4 to a team like that, worst loss. They went 25-30 overall, 11-19 within the conference. They did have a 5-game win streak at one point in time, but they also had a 4-game losing streak that included 3 straight to a combination of Louisiana Tech and Southern Miss. So again, 4-game losing streak when you got two teams in La Tech and USM. It's not the worst 4-game losing streak you could have had. I'll say that. So that's why I said I think ULM has a little bit more promise than these previous two teams we've looked at. Although we do, again, have to mention, Seth brought it up last show, Arkansas State's going to have a new head coach coming into the season. So what does that do for their recruiting and transfers and who knows? But I think ULM's got – yeah.
Who do they hire?
I don't know if they have yet. I'm not sure if I've seen anything official. If they have, I haven't heard it. But if someone's watching and sees that somewhere, you can certainly let us know. Chuck, a previous guest of the show from Everyday Eagles, says, "Love what you guys do. Keep it up. We need more of it." And same to you, Chuck, man. We know the Southern Miss community loves their baseball. They love sports overall, but baseball has got to be their number one from what I've seen. I mean, football is probably way up there too, but crazy baseball fans. They have burner accounts. They have a lot of fun with it. If you don't follow the Southern Miss Twitter accounts like 16-Ounce Lounge and some of these other great names that they've come up with to do fun stuff, most of it's pretty clean fun too. So it's not like you're getting real raunchy. So it's enjoyable to be a part of Sunbelt Baseball Twitter. Are you guys starting to follow some of those accounts now that we're doing all of this?
Yeah, starting to follow a few of them.
Yeah, it's a good time, especially with the Southern Miss and Tennessee fans talking about the Applebee's and whatnot. So again, that's a clean fun thing, man. That's a lot of fun to have interaction on. So all right, so we got Artie's team here, Texas State. Again, we mentioned the fact that they made regionals last year, 36 wins on the season. However, about 10 less this year. They go 27-29 overall, 13-17 within the conference. They suffered a 6-game losing streak at one point in time, but they did have a 4-game win streak early, made them look like one of the best teams in the conference early this season. Let's not lie about it. They went to the College Classic, hosted there in Houston at Houston Astros Stadium, so not a bad place to play. They took out both Houston and Texas in that, and I think they were I think they went deep into actually maybe that was Louisiana. I think it was Louisiana actually who went deep into extras in one of the last games there. I think ended at 1 a.m. It was insane. But talking back about Texas State, I've got their best win as a 7-5 victory over Southern Miss. I think at that point, that was one of the last of the season, gave them a shot had they won one more victory to get into the conference tournament.
They were close.
Yeah. So I had that as their best win because it gave them a shot, an opportunity, and obviously you win down there in Hattiesburg. Never easy to do, as Chuck can tell us very, very well. But their worst loss being a 5-0 loss to Marshall. Again, we're talking about the difference of making the tournament by one conference game, and you lost to one of the worst teams in the conference in Marshall by 5 runs. You scored 0. So to me, that's got to be their worst loss. That's one they got to look back at and say, man.
I agree.
Was Bryce pitching that game?
Honestly, I didn't get that detail, but it'd be interesting to see if he was for that one. Be very interesting to see if he was on that one. Artie says, "What can you say about Texas State baseball that hasn't already been said about Afghanistan? It looks bombed out and depleted."
Listen, I think Texas State obviously underperformed early in the season. College Classic, when we saw them play App, they looked like a team that was on pace to compete for a top 4 spot in the regional. I can't say I watched enough of them to kind of really know what went wrong. I can't remember the kid that plays for them, the tattooed guy, hell of a ball player. They had some pieces, but I don't think they're bombed out and depleted. I think Texas State comes back next year and proves who they are.
I could see it too.
Yeah, I think that's very likely to happen. I don't think you can stay down in Texas as a member of a baseball program, community, conference, and stay down very long. I feel like, how many actually, I think North Carolina put the most teams in the NCAA tournament this year with 7, followed by Louisiana with 6. If I'm remembering all this is all off the top of my head, so I could be wrong, but I think it was 7 for North Carolina, 6 for Louisiana. and I don't remember who the third place team is, but I would assume it was Texas because they seem to have a lot of teams in that tournament. And if Lamar would have made it, that would have been another one. I believe Lamar's based down there in Texas. Artie can let me know if that's factually inaccurate.
Hey, South runs baseball.
Yeah.
And football. Yeah. Was there any question that the
North Carolina runs baseball? Let's get it.
Let's go. Yeah. I was kind of surprised by that, but you think about High Point. I think they made their first tournament ever. Was that right?
High Point, yeah. Wilmington made it too, right?
They did.
Yep, Wilmington didn't have a great showing, but they made it. Yeah. Hey, there's another team who looked like garbage, hot garbage. Wake.
Yeah, they did. They really did.
Hey, they preseason number 1?
They were.
Yeah,
they were.
Oof. Rough.
You think Jalen McLeod's going to go play a little bit of baseball for Texas State, trying to make them better?
Jordan McLeod, right?
Jordan, sorry, yeah.
No, it's all good. Yeah. Does he play base? He probably does. He probably pitches. Not actually. I'm saying but in high school maybe. You know how oh God, is it
Russell Wilson?
Mahomes,
yeah, there you go.
Get Mahomes, Wilson, all those guys play baseball.
Yeah.
Let them pitch against JMU next year. It'd be fun.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, yeah. So Artie is confirming. Yeah, Lamar, Beaumont. Is that how you pronounce that? Beaumont near Houston. Yeah, they got robbed. I think they got robbed. Again, I know the conference schedule for them isn't the toughest, but you win the most games in NCAA baseball and you're not in the tournament. Oof. Yeah, I don't know how you. I mean, that's the same argument. I think we said this last week, but Florida State going undefeated and being told they're not good enough to be a college football playoff team. I don't know how you.
They're not.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying it's the worst decision ever, but you're talking about just optics, right?
I know.
You're saying we've done literally everything on our schedule to get here, and we not.
There's also a big difference between 4 teams getting in and 64 teams getting in.
Yeah,
true.
Absolutely.
Very much true. Speaking of teams getting in, here's Georgia State, kind of backed their way in before Texas State, as we just mentioned. It finishes one spot above them, 25-32 overall, 13-17, the same conference record as Texas State, but they had the tiebreaker, so they jumped them. 6-game win streak at one point in time. They also had a 5-game losing streak at one point. Their losses, let me go back for a second because this is interesting. Look at that. Their best win is the same one as Texas State.
Yep.
And their worst loss is the same one as in Marshall. Now, the scores weren't the same, and they were different results for different reasons. But yeah, they beat
up a lot here on the worst losses.
Yeah, and Texas State had a better record, but I guess they lost 2 out of 3 to them. So there you go.
Yeah, better overall record, but you're right. I mean, you're looking at 13-17 in conference for both of them. It came down to the tiebreaker. That's why I'm saying these worst losses are big time deals, right? Not at the moment that they happen. You're thinking, oh, we can recover, blah, blah, blah. But you're looking back now and you're saying we lost to Marshall 9-1 too. It's not the other reason I'm putting this in there. It's not like it's a 2-1 loss and you're thinking, oh, we just got unlucky. There was a bad call. You can't really doubt a 9-1 victory. You just can't do it. And then they did have the 18-8. They ruled Southern Miss at home in Atlanta. No one saw that coming. They did it twice. This one was their best win because they won by one more run in this one than they did in the other one. But they ruled them 2 games in a row to start that series out. So,
impressive.
Yeah, I had Georgia State best win against Southern Miss, which really, again, is essentially 2. That's why it was listed as their best win. So anything to think about the bus lot boys, as they call them, as we found out from Austin?
Hey, until they get a real baseball stadium, we're not going to talk about them. Are we sure they're not going to buy like a really nice high school baseball stadium and renovate it and call it theirs?
You know what they should have done? They should have just re-renovated the football stadium to be able to play baseball in during the off season, right?
So they could have another 400 fans in a 40,000 person stadium. No thanks.
Why not?
I passed by there yesterday morning. Yeah.
Did you?
Still looking good. The old Ted.
Well,
nice. Very nice. Already saying now this team is on the rise. Atlanta, my new most hated team. Yeah, when your team and that team are neck and neck and there's just a small difference, that's got to be rough to just look back. Again, it very much mirror images of each other, and one game could have made all the difference for both teams. So interesting aspect as we move into the teams that did make the Sun Belt Conference tournament more traditionally, I guess. No tiebreakers to get them into this one. South Alabama finishes 31-25, pretty decent record overall. 14-16 in conference, though, so they did have a losing record there in conference. Just like the last team in Georgia State, they did have a 6-game win streak at one point in time. They did lose 4 straight at one point. Also, I got their best win as a 6-5 victory over Mississippi State, kind of a regional power team, SEC team. And their worst loss, a 12-2 decision versus Alabama State, who's really not known for their baseball and is an in-conference team or in-state team. Sorry, you can't be losing 12-2 to Alabama State.
No,
that's pretty bad.
It is
bad. That
pretty
loss
bad.
Also came after a number of losses within conference play as well. So you think, oh, we're getting out of these losing streaks. We got Alabama State to recover with. We're going to go in there, win this game, get back on track, and 12-2 loss. So
those are polar opposite best and worst. I mean, you beat an SEC team and then get your butt whooped by in-state lesser opponent, if you will.
HBCU.
Hey, Grambling made the tournament, dude.
Got destroyed too.
Yeah, they got destroyed bad. Did you see? I think it was DeBarge. Did you see his inside the park home run?
Yeah, well, it was based on 3 errors on one play.
Yeah,
it looked like my 8U coach.
Ever seen the movie Hardball? Sorry.
Yes,
that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, that was a rough play, man. I mean, it was a good hit to start it off with, and there was a hell of a base. I mean, he's a hell of a base runner to be that aggressive and that fast. I mean, the play at the plate, even had it gotten there, which it didn't. It kind of went wide of the catcher. He still had to beat. I don't think he even slid. Did he? He just ran right in. He didn't even have to slide.
It's like a little league home run.
Yeah.
Hey, I think South Alabama was probably right where they thought they would be.
Yeah, right in the middle, little below.
But not where the coaches had them preseason, right? Didn't the coach? I think we said we had the coaches have them. I don't know where that paper went. They were 5 or 6, I think, in the conference. Yeah, that's crazy.
Coaches don't.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see if they can do it again next year, or not do it again necessarily, but get to that point. But we do know, or maybe you guys aren't aware, as I've been looking at some of this stuff, but South Alabama is a very historically good baseball program. So they could return to form. It's not unheard of. Mobile is a hot spot down there in the South for baseball as well. They got a lot of good, very talented junior college teams in that area. So they may not be far. Maybe that's why the coaches keep thinking that they're going to make some big jump up here. So
I want to sidebar here for a second. We talk about historically good baseball teams. We talk about historically good football teams. How much could the transfer in NIL change what historically has been good?
It's true.
You know, like a team like a South Alabama, or hell, take App State in football, which kind of, I'm not going to draw a comparison because I don't know anything about South Alabama historically in baseball, but a program that kind of prides itself in getting the underpicked guy, bringing them in, developing them, and creating a program like that can lose kids, kind of what we were talking about. I don't know. That could change the landscape of some of these lesser known teams that have been historically good might not have that opportunity in the future.
What's Coastal's coach name? Gary.
Yeah. You said the first name, and now I'm going blank on the last name. But
anyways, did you guys see what he said after the Clemson game?
Yes, I did see that, and it was super accurate.
Yeah, spot on.
Super accurate, but did you see how many people were ripping him for his opinion? I think a lot of people misinterpreted or saw a soundbite and didn't hear the whole thing or like understand his tone. And
but and we're going to go down this rabbit hole for a minute.
Let's do it.
Look at the legendary coaches in basketball, in football that are retiring just in the last 3 years after NILs come into play.
Yeah.
Roy Williams, Coach K, Nick Saban.
Yep.
You know, look at the way the playing fields have become now.
Hey, Seth.
Yo.
It ain't that much fun when everybody can pay the players, right?
Yeah, I mean, look at Clemson. Look at Alabama. It's an even playing field nowadays.
Yeah, I think it makes it I think the parity gets smaller. I think the teams with the most money in the next 5 years, like you're going to see it happen right now. You have the power. Used to be P5, now it's going to be P4. Then it's going to be a subset of teams move away because they got more money to pay more players. I especially in football, it's the beginning of the end, in my opinion. It's going to make everything.
Yeah,
we had a conversation. It makes it less. I can remember a day when you could follow a kid that got recruited and watch him progress throughout your program for 4 years, right? Like that doesn't happen that often anymore. They're constantly going to be leaving. I don't know.
It's sad.
It is sad. It's the death of college sports.
Yeah, unfortunately it is.
And it's starting to rear its head. And some of the people that watch the show that are fans of the Tennessees and all that, they're going to disagree because they're the ones that are the beneficiaries of all this crap. But the Sun Belt,
Tennessee paid Clemson's best player last year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to call any names. But we got a guy from App State that went to Auburn, got $200,000, right? He had a great season at Auburn, but does that pay off at the end of the day? Like,
as the kid, do you blame him?
Right.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I don't know everyone's background. I mean, dude, if I grew up poor as shit, right? Like you offer me $200,000 when I'm 20 years old, like, yeah, I'm gone.
You offer me $20 at 20 years old.
But it also goes back to the fundamentals of who you want to be as a person. Like, does your word and your commitment mean something to you?
Not anymore, buddy. Money talks. You know how it is.
Yeah, it's part of it. I get part of it's crap.
Yeah, I agree.
Artie says trans Camaros for everyone now, which is funny and sad because that's literally what was it? Was it Utah who literally gave every scholarship player not free, but they leased them all brand new vehicles off the car lot or something nuts like that?
I believe so.
We're getting back into that. Remind us to get back into that before this.
Those dealers might have been one of my clients.
Oh, Marv sneaking himself into those NIL deals, man. They're sneaking in.
I'd be against it, but I'll take the money.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And he also said Gary will not miss the chaos. I think all of us would not miss the chaos if we had to be involved in that. I can only imagine if you think about your own specific job and all the extra things that you would tack on that you didn't have to deal with before, but you're getting paid the same to deal with a lot more issues and problems and responsibility. Everybody always wants a raise for that. But I don't think it's a money aspect. He never once said it was a money aspect. I don't think it is. I don't think it was money aspect for Saban. I think it really is the stress and not wanting to live like that. But again, we'll wrap back in. So we'll get back into the baseball. We've got ODU up next, 31-26, 15-15, which is almost exactly what they did last season. Hold on, I have this in front of me right here. They went, guess what? 15-15 last season as well. So no real improvement up or down there. And they almost matched the win-loss total as well, as they went 32-23 last year, 31-26 this year. 4-game win streak at one point in time, only a 3-game losing streak. So they did well to kind of, diminish those losing streaks in a row. I've got their best win as a 7-4 victory over the Virginia Cavaliers, but their worst loss coming to James Madison in the conference tournament by a run rule in only 8 innings, 15-5. I think that was the one that ended their season. So that's why I've got it as their worst loss. You don't want to end your season against what you believe is a rival and a foe. And so it's not an embarrassing loss or anything like that. I've got it as the worst loss because that's that team at Georgia Southern, all these other teams.
I don't think that's the end of the world, though. I mean,
no.
That's a when you're against a regional team, and in-state team, and even if your worst loss is JMU, I think you're trending middle of the pack up. You know, I don't think that's the end of the world.
And you beat a team that is hosting a super.
Did they make it through the regional?
Yeah, Virginia made it through the regional, and they have Kansas State, I think, coming in.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah,
that's tough. And I will say again, I want to reiterate, Seth, that their worst loss, probably record-wise and all that, was not to James Madison. It was to someone else. But with all the things that are around this, right? Your conference tournament is now over. You're losing to a team that's like a rival. That's why I listed as their worst loss. Again,
I got you.
These are all opinion-based, not necessarily statistic-based. So some of them don't make some sense when you compare. Like JMU is a good team. What are you talking about? But yeah, they were. There's no embarrassment there with
They
that.
beat Arkansas.
Yeah, they beat
mighty super regional host. Oh, that's right. Yeah, they beat Arkansas. Listen, hey, ODU is a solid baseball team. I mean, look, they never lost more than 3 games. Over 500 total, 500 in a really good conference. They beat a super regional host. Worst loss being to a team that went to a regional final. Kudos to them. Not a lot of progress, as you just said. You know, they didn't get any better. But hey, they get a new ballpark next year. Let's see what they do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to see this comment. I've been saving it until we had a little break because I didn't want to miss it. Artie says ULM kids are getting Kias.
Nice.
No Trans Camaros for you in Monroe. You're getting Kias. Electric Kias.
I guess I'm gonna disappear for like 3 minutes. Be right back.
All right, we'll be all right without you because this is your team you love to hate. All right, Seth, it's you and me right here. Coastal Carolina finishes with a 36-25 overall record, so pretty good there. 16-14 in conference, so just over 500 as we just saw with ODU. However, part of the things that helped get them into this tournament, a 15-game win streak near the beginning of the season, as we talked about, probably a large part of why their RPI was so high, because they beat some really good teams in that time too. But towards the end of the season, they did drop 8 straight, which is one of the reasons why I think all of us questioned how good of a team this really was and how far they could really go. I have their best win as a 13-3 victory over Vanderbilt there in the regionals. I have their worst loss as a 6-3 loss to App State. Once again, just like the last one we talked about, Coastal lost to worse statistical teams than App State. But I listed this as their worst loss because at this point, when this loss occurred, this 6-3 loss to App, they were now bumped out of the conference tournament, and some people thought their chances of making the NCAA tournament were over. So, again, is it an embarrassing loss? Is it a loss?
I get your reasoning. I understand your reasoning. Best win, I mean, didn't they beat Indiana at the beginning of the year, right?
Yeah, I think I listed this as their best victory because this was their proving point, right? They were back then, they were backing into the regionals. Some people thought, like us, they didn't even belong in there because of how they backed in. It wasn't an impressive finish.
Yeah.
So the fact that they proved, and then obviously not just getting the victory, but they didn't. I mean, there was no doubt in that game. 13-3. What? You were the one that texted first, I think. Didn't they jump out like 5-0 real quick or something?
Yeah, they started off real hot. I didn't watch. I only watched the Clemson games in that regional, but yeah, I think they jumped up on them Friday, right? The first game of the day. Yeah,
it was Friday.
So yeah, I think going in the conference tournament, I think we all talked that we wouldn't be surprised if Coastal would win 1 or 2 in that one. We all thought they were due. I don't think we really predicted them beating Clemson, which they didn't. But at the beginning of the year, if you told us that Coastal would have made the regional final, I don't think we would have all been shocked by any means. But I think we're more shocked how they got to the regional final more than anything.
Yeah, I agree with you. The only reason I thought they would make the NCAA tournament is because I saw so many people who have done this over the years doing their predictions, and they were always listed almost every time within that. Now, they just like they were in real life, they were usually listed towards like, hey, you barely making it in.
Right.
But they were listed there. And the other thing that's kind of hard to wrap your brain around is like the size of a conference, and then all of a sudden you're getting 64 teams into this tournament. Yeah. It's a lot more than you think at first. You're like, well, they might not get in, but 64 teams is a lot of teams. And as we saw on the selection show, for those that watch that, there's previous coaches and guys involved in college baseball who believe they can make the tournament bigger, still be successful, and allow some of these teams like your Lamar's, your College of Charleston to get in because they want to reward them for a good season. I'd rather see stuff like a conference that's terrible that has, I think it even happened this year. Wasn't there a champion from a conference who got in with like a losing record overall or something?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who that was. I can't think of it.
Yeah. I would say
it was Oral Roberts.
Roberts.
But they were a conference champion though.
Yeah. So this is it's hard. People don't want to hear this. You win your conference, you get to go to the tournament. That's kind of the thing. Instead of just making the tournament bigger, I'd rather you just say you're just going to put in better teams. So if you realize that there's a conference out there that's not very good, then, hey, guess what? You're out. I don't know. It comes back to that conversation that you have about state high school championships in the playoffs. And Seth's very aware of this because of where Watauga's located. Marv knows these things too, probably more from the east side of the state, but probably even familiar with spending his time at App for college. You get a team like, I don't know, what's a team up there? Avery High School, but there's one that's even further north than them, I feel like, that is real tiny. It's purple with the Mitchell. Is Mitchell the mascot? They like make the playoffs, and they play a team that they know is going to hammer them. I don't know in all sports. I'm just saying in some sports. But they literally have to go take that loss. Otherwise, they get fined by the state for not playing a playoff game. But they know their conference isn't very good. They really don't deserve to go. They got a losing record. They're playing one of the best teams from Charlotte or something like that. Why are we putting those teams in the tournament? So again, instead of expanding the tournament, to me, you just say, listen, your conference wasn't good enough. I don't care if you win it or not. You're not going to be rewarded for that. I don't know. Right. That's tough for some people maybe to hear, but that's my thought process. I don't necessarily need you to expand. Just put the better teams in. So they did it with Florida State this year, right? In football.
Yeah.
They said, hey, we don't care you won your conference. You're not one of the 4 best teams.
Once again, 64 versus 4. That's kind of the breaking point there. But, I said it last week. There are better teams in the Sun Belt that probably deserved a spot over Coastal. I think we all agreed earlier that you put some of those teams in that same regional and you get the exact same result.
Yep.
Very, very true.
Y'all asked the question earlier, who's Coastal's head coach? I think the better question is, who's Coastal's AD?
Do they not have one right now?
For
the baseball. He's on the board. That was
same thing happened to Florida. Losing record. I think it was a losing conference record, and I think their AD was on the board as well, and they got in. But now they're going to a super regional. So you get
a super regional against Clemson. Maybe warranted.
Yeah, they've made some. Did I say this already, Marv? There was somebody on Twitter who was taking one of your direct quotes from the show last week and trying to throw it at our faces. And I said, hey, I don't think any of us will go back and take back our words. We all thought, and I still think, that before this tournament started, I don't think they deserved it.
They don't. Right. I mean, no.
Yeah.
I don't think they did.
I mean, hey, like we said, once they're there, hey, I hope they do win because it makes all of us look better, right? If one of our not really great teams goes in there and wins games, that's a good thing because that helps us look smart when we say that the Sun Belt is one of the best baseball conferences, as we do believe. So we will jump on from Coastal Carolina finally and get to some of our favorite teams, all of our favorite teams. App State baseball goes 33-21-1. That one tie against the team we've already seen there in Arkansas State, 16-13-1 as far as the conference record goes. 6-game win streak at one point in time, 3-game losing streak is the longest streak. Neither one of those are really all that amazing. I guess the props would come from only losing 3 in a row at any one point. They didn't have any kind of long losing streak. I think they did have, I think it was like at least 6 or 7 games at one point last year where they lost in a row. So that improving upon that is good. Obviously, the overall improvement as well. I had their best win as a 10-6 victory over the Troy Trojans. That one because it came within the conference tournament, and that helped them stay alive to get on to play Southern Miss in that what ended up being the elimination game there. But that kept their season alive, as we know now. Their worst loss, I had it as a 9-5 loss to Georgia Southern. Again, statistically, Georgia Southern being a bad team to lose to? No. It's the fact it came at home against a hated rival, and that one could have won you the series.
Was that the last game of the season?
I believe it was.
I would argue that App's worst loss would either be UNC Asheville or Western Carolina.
Yeah. I think when you were gone, I think me and Dom talked about the relevancy, is that a word?
Yep.
Of the loss. Where it came in and how it affected the season, I believe.
Yeah,
is what
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, because as far as now, this is a conference loss, it's affecting you in the standings, that type of thing. Again, the other big aspect of this is who it is, right? If it's Coastal or maybe even JMU, although we're probably pretty similar in thought processes to JMU at this point, but I think Georgia Southern still takes the cake as far as like that's a team you don't want to lose to, and it could have flipped the series because you had one victory already.
Yeah, so my argument would be that RPI wise, right? And we all know how important that is. A Catamount loss, a UNC Asheville loss probably doesn't help your RPI at all.
True.
Beating Georgia Southern in that last game doesn't really help you in conference seeding. So I don't know. I think and it would be very interesting to see if App could have pulled off that Wake Forest win. Well, what would that have done to their RPI? We lost by a run.
Yep.
Yeah. At that time, it would have looked good, but after this weekend, I don't, looking back, I don't know how well it would have looked in the long run.
Once again, JMU gets one win against Arkansas. They did good and, same position. But, no, I mean, listen, App baseball is, in my opinion, on the rise. I think we got the right guy leading the program.
Good group of guys.
A lot of our big production, though, was off of transfers, and a lot of those guys are going to be leaving. So it'll be interesting to see how many transfers we can get to come in that can help sustain what we got going. But, 33 wins. Pretty impressive.
Yeah. Did we lose Tuthill this year? He's gone now, right?
Tuthill's gone. Tyler's gone.
That's tough.
Yeah, there's a lot of big production. But once again, Tuthill's been there since the beginning, but Tyler, first-year player. Can you go and find another one of him? I don't know. The kid jacked the ball all around the baseball stadium all year.
Made some plays in the outfield too.
Yeah,
he did.
He's a very good baseball player. He'll be he'll get a look.
Yeah, he definitely will, as he should.
Yeah, I hope so. Maybe I'll just adopt whatever team he ends up on as my favorite team. I'll probably start doing that all around. Now that Sunbelt baseball is continuing to be on the rise, and we've got players from all kinds of teams that are going to have shots and looks, so that's going to be pretty fun. Georgia Southern, team we just talked about, goes 33-26, 17-13 overall, 7-game win streak at one point in time. They did suffer a 4-game losing streak as their longest losing streak of the season. I had their best win as a 7-1 victory over James Madison. But their worst loss, 14-11 to USM. Now you're saying, how the hell is that the worst loss? It was in the championship game. So here's the deal with why it's the worst loss. First of all, they were up in the 8th inning, somewhat comfortably maybe, depending on who you thought each team was going into the last inning or two there. They had also been in 5, I believe, conference championship games across the last 6 or 7 seasons, and they had lost every single one of them.
Yeah.
And then they looked like they were going to win one. They looked like they were finally going to win one, beat Southern Miss, and then it just
Not
all
so
fell apart.
fast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And if they win that one, they're in a regional.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's how
I
big
agree.
it was. So again, all those reasons. Again, like we said, not their worst RPI loss or anything crazy like that. It's because of what it did to their season. Just like Marv said, they could have been in the NCAA tournament by winning this. Plus, you put everything on a T-shirt, right? You want to sell a T-shirt? Conference champs.
Yeah.
Guess what? Southern Miss got to put that on their T-shirts and say back to back. So that is the reason that I had that listed as the worst loss for Georgia Southern. I'm sure some of their fans are going to say that's not a bad loss. It's not, but it's a bad loss when you think of where it could have put you automatically. No one could have questioned whether you were going to belong because you won your conference tournaments.
I like when you bring facts, Dom.
I do a little research. We'll try and get into more player-specific stuff next year as we move further away from the belt baseball beginners and we rebrand into I don't know. We'll have to change the meaning of the bees.
Baseball. Hey,
I know what Marv's B is.
Can't say that. What is
say
it?
that.
Say it out loud.
The belt. Hey, the belt
Honestly,
baseball boys. There it is. Belt baseball boys.
Hey, this team and the next team we're going to talk about, my opinion, deserve to be in the tournament more than Coastal. And once again, I think could have got the same result. Oh, maybe not the team after that.
Yeah, the one after this one probably. Let's see. Yep. All right. So one that was in the tournament due to whatever kind of circumstances you want to say, but one of the most obvious ones is the RPI. 36 and 25 overall for the James Madison Dukes, known as the everything school, as everybody loves to hear in this conference. 17 and 13 within the conference.
I'll be right back.
All right. 10-game win streak. That's got to be a part of that RPI there, Marv. Like you're going to get credit for a 10-game win streak no matter who it is.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Hey, was that sandwiched around their sweep of app?
Ooh, that's a good question. I can bring that up while we look at something else here. Let me start loading that. They did suffer 4 straight losses at one point, but again, that's not too bad of a losing streak throughout the season. I had their best win as the 2-0 victory over South Carolina. Again, that kept their season alive, put them into that regional final versus NC State, where they still performed very well. Like you said, Marv, NC State, not the biggest threat, and one team that they probably could have gotten around and win a couple more innings even. I mean, that's just how close they were. But I do have, guess who it is again, worst loss, 11-7 versus Marshall. Let's see where that 10-game win streak came early on.
Okay.
It did include Virginia Tech and then a bunch of weaker opponents, to be honest, including Fairfield, Cornell, VMI, and they did get 2 against ETSU. So I guess ETSU, half decent program there. I'm trying to think of exactly why I listed Marshall as a bad loss.
It's probably just because where Marshall ended up in the conference.
Yeah. And I think, you're right. Because there's nothing real specific. It just broke up. They could have had another decently long win streak of, I think, 6 or 7 games there had they won that one. But I guess that I had it listed because they lost it at home to Marshall. Could have ended that would have swept Marshall for the weekend had they not dropped it. I guess probably another thing. But again, obviously in the end they didn't need it. They got to where they wanted to be. So yeah. We missed one from JD Page on the last one. Everyone's favorite chant here. Hail Southern. Oh, I got sick when I said that.
I can't delete that out of my memory.
Artie Cat says Marshall dealt out some critical losses this season. They did. See, this is the thing. Like, they've got some talent. They just need more of it as a well-rounded team, and I think that's the aspect that they're missing on yet. Guys, have we talked enough about JMU? Anything you got left to say on this one? You want to debate any wins or losses?
I'm done with JMU.
Yeah, I think they exceeded expectations.
Good for them. Good for them.
Good for them.
Yeah, now let us talk to their players, AD.
Yeah. They want to be on the show.
Yeah. Speaking of people who let us talk to their players, the Troy Trojans, they go 37-22 overall, 18-12 within the conference, 8-game win streak for their longest. a losing streak of only 3 games. So again, you're going to see these top teams having a lot less of losing streaks, and some of those decently long win streaks strung together. Makes perfect sense when you see what their records were. Their best win I had is a 6-5 victory over App State, because guess what? It was in the conference tournament. So again, that's an interesting part, though.
12-hour baseball game? No, that was Southern Miss.
Yeah, that was, yeah. But that's the interesting part about their best win, right? They played some really good teams. They had some really, really close losses to some really good teams. So that tells you here a little bit why App State is listed as their best win, because that's probably the argument that kept them from getting into that NCAA field of 64, honestly. You got to look and say, what's their big hallmark moment? Who did they beat they weren't supposed to? You know, that's the stuff that they were probably missing on a resume builder when you compared them to other teams. Again, you'd have to put it on a 1-versus-1 thing to maybe make that make more sense across the board and see who they were up against and what their resumes were. But just as an outside look, they just didn't have that massive victory over anybody really, really big this year. Like maybe that could have helped them. I had their worst loss as an 8-6 loss at Texas State. I think I had a reason for that, but that one's escaping me off the top of my head.
Because of where Texas State ended up.
Probably.
No, it wasn't that, actually. That was because, let me pull it up to verify I'm thinking of this correctly. That could have put
real quick.
Yeah.
Brady Fuller. Come to
yeah. There you go. He did enter the transfer portal. He was a previous guest here on the syndicate. I can't remember if he received a syndicate bump. I mean, most people do. So
yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Brady was the one. His dad played in the show. So Clemson, or no, Auburn.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Because it was a real possibility he was going to look at Auburn, I think, is what he had told us. So maybe that makes sense too. Troy should have gotten into the tournament, is what Artie Cat says. Yeah, that was one of our arguments too. But then when I looked at their resume, I was thinking, maybe this is part of it. They just don't have something amazing there. Here we go. Artie's got the reasoning for me. We took 2 of 3 games from them when they were ranked. So the reason I had it as their worst loss is because maybe they stay ranked, but also they lose the series to Texas State because of that loss. Had they won that game, they're winning that series there. And maybe that's enough to get them into the – I doubt it was one game against Texas State.
How in the hell do you finish 4th in the regular season and advance further in the tournament than Coastal, and Coastal gets in over you?
No sense.
There's one that when you're looking at resumes, I don't think they put enough stock into. That's where they go, well, they're close here. Let's look at the RPI. No, don't look at the RPI. Look how they're finishing the season. And I agree with you, Marv. That's where I would have gone. And that's what I would have said.
If Troy's AD was on the committee, are they in?
Yeah, I think so.
Believe so.
I think you're right.
That's a problem.
People say, they have to leave the room. You don't think there's a handshake before they leave the room? Come on.
Crap. I don't know. That's crap.
Yeah. I think that is I think that's a big reason right there. And I'm sure it's not been on the committee just this year, right? It's been like a multi-year thing. They don't even have to talk. They just know. They know what they're doing before they enter those rooms, right?
That's ridiculous.
It's all politics, as we know, unfortunately. But moving on to the number 2 team in the conference throughout the regular season, but as we now know, the first place finisher when it comes to Sun Belt baseball tournament. The Southern Miss Golden Eagles go 43-20 overall on the season, a 20-10 conference record, an 8-game win streak at one point in time, only suffered 2 straight losses a few times throughout the year. Again, when you get to these top teams, you're going to see a lot less in that loss column and a lot less strung together. I had their best win personally as a 15-3 victory over Indiana, not only because Indiana got to the regionals and was a good team throughout the year, but they also did this up there in Bloomington and took care of Indiana at their place. So not easy to go on the road, especially when you're going all the way up to Big Ten country from almost one of the most southern points of the United States there in Southern Miss. Their worst loss, I had it as a 19-8 run rule against Georgia State. We actually covered that, earlier for Georgia State. Yeah, you just don't want to go on the road there to Georgia State, who ended up, not finishing the greatest. They did look pretty good early in the season. When this happened, actually, it was shocking because it was a run rule. It wasn't shocking because Georgia State won. But I still have it as their worst loss because they did it again. They did it twice in a row, and then you lose the series on top of it. So that's my reasoning for their worst loss. What do you guys think about Southern Miss baseball?
I think you put Southern Miss in that Raleigh regional. I could easily see them coming away with it.
Yep.
Tennessee's a buzzsaw. I mean, they ran into a buzzsaw. That's all there is to it. I think they could have competed. They could have even competed in the Clemson regional, but I think Tennessee was just a little too much for them.
So let's touch on that then, because that was what their fan base was hammering. Before, and in all fairness, it was before the regional started. It wasn't like once they lost, they started to complain. They were very upfront with this initially. This team wins back-to-back conference championships in the tournament. You don't get credit for the year before. I know that, but I'm just mentioning that.
If you're coastal, you do. We keep going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They are the number one team coming out of the Sun Belt, and they get rewarded after. And now we're saying that, SEC is number one. We've said that. That's clear. Okay. We're not going to argue that. But you're putting the SEC's best team against the Sun Belt's best team?
Yeah, the number one overall team in the tournament. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to question the seeding aspect. I'm not saying that we didn't think that they wouldn't compete or like, oh, it's not fair, they're going to get blown out. We never really thought that. But you have to look at it and go, I mean, like you said, Coastal and James Madison, who are closer to not making the tournament,
get better draws. Our top two teams got shitty draws. There's all there. I mean, you got Louisiana going to Texas and Texas A&M. You've got Southern going to Tennessee, which there's a little history there. And I guess regionally, yeah, it makes sense. But our top two teams got bad draws.
Yeah, that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Let's say this for a second. Flip both teams, Louisiana and Southern Miss, and then put JMU. I think we've got two teams in supers. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not easily, but
you put Southern Miss and Raleigh. I think they walk too.
Yep. I really think that changes the outcome, but you don't get to pick and choose where you end up. So I just wanted to touch on that because it was a moment and a thing online that I did agree with. And once I started looking at it, I was like, yeah, that's true. You don't want to look weak. And they were trying to say that, like, we're not complaining that we have to go up against Tennessee because they wanted to beat them, but you do have to question. You say, like, I don't know how you say that makes a lot of sense.
That doesn't.
So yeah, don't know. But we are now at the number one overall team throughout the regular season, which is the Raging Cajuns. I put these in order of regular season finish, by the way. I didn't regroup them after the conference tournament because there was going to be so much movement for me to keep it straight about where you said somebody ended up because of this or that. So I just went with the regular season finish. So the Cajuns end up as the last team we are going to talk about here. But they were 42-20 overall. So like we see, I mean, they're right there. Southern Miss 43-20, Raging Cajuns 42-20, 23-7. Phenomenal mark throughout the regular season as far as conference play goes. They won 16 straight games at one point in time. Now, some of those people question whether a lot of that was talented teams. It wasn't, to be totally honest with you. But as we know, baseball is a weird game, and when you can string together 16 straight games, I don't really give a damn who you're playing.
Yeah.
That is a very impressive mark. So we're going to reward them for that, and I'm glad that they got to do that throughout this season. They did suffer a 3-game losing streak, so not as maybe as impressive as Southern Miss only getting 2, but that's not really a huge mark. It's just a little note to make. I had their best win as the 10-2 victory over Texas because you were playing to get into a regional final. You left no doubt in that Texas game. Jose Torres had the amazing bat flip after the home run. You guys see that when he nailed that thing out of the park? He's like, once he swung and hit it, like as he was coming back, he just kind of flick of the wrist it, and it just twisted and and he just kind of struck a pose like real quick and then just
I
went.
believe they were up on Texas in the first game as well, right?
Yeah,
most of the game.
Yep. Yeah, I mean we asked Marv, I believe you were the one maybe that asked, who would you rather play, Indiana or Texas? I don't think, I mean, either one of them at that point, because of how they looked in this, Indiana or Texas, that wasn't too far off.
No.
So yeah. Anyway, they beat them. I had it as their best victory because again, it puts them into that regional final. I had their worst loss again. It was kind of like hard to pick one for them, but I had it as a 7-3 loss to ODU. And there wasn't a ton behind that, honestly. It's kind of like pick one of the 20 losses. It wasn't.
Who did they lose to in the tournament? Because
that's what that is.
Yeah,
that's what that is.
That's yeah. If Louisiana doesn't, they lost back-to-back games. They did not win a game in our conference tournament.
That's a good point. That's what that is. That is the loss to kick them out of the tournament. You're correct.
They go far, they host, and we're probably having another podcast next week to talk about a Sunbelt team in the Super.
Yeah. And possibly hosting the Super, depending on who they – it's weird that, like, in the regional aspect, they kind of get to put these teams together in these 4-team pods, and then the Supers, it's just this regional and this regional match up instead of kind of maybe regrouping.
Yeah.
Or reseeding, if you will, that kind of thing. I don't know. I guess you just say it's more fair at that point because you can't, that then someone complains that someone got matched up on purpose or something like that. But just an interesting aspect. I want to catch up on some of Artie's comments here. Favre and Van Lindingham are not facing criminal charges over welfare misspending. Man, I can't even say that name, but yeah, that's a
Southern Miss.
Yeah. Mississippi is always on the up and up. Yeah, I'm not the greatest political state to be involved with. I'm sure a lot of backdoor deals and handshakes that don't really help a lot of people. So unfortunate in that part. Lafayette did well, so close to pulling it off. Yeah, absolutely. I was cheering for them because they were quite literally our last chance, right? At that point, when they play in their last game, the other games were either done or finishing up, and you knew they weren't. None of us were likely to move on. None of them were likely to move on. But Louisiana was still playing with a pretty good chance in their last game, and then it fell apart there towards the end. Pick any of the conference sweeps. What a dominant regular season by Lafayette. You love how Artie gets those digs in there, right? They hate to be referred to as Lafayette, so he likes to just poke. I love it. Because Cajun fans will tell you, like, who the hell's Lafayette? We're Louisiana. So if you ever see that, anything else on the Cajuns here, boys?
They represented the conference well. I think Marv hit, a little bit disappointing in the tournament, but yeah, would we like to see somebody host and be in a super regional? Absolutely, but I think things could be a lot worse as a conference.
They could be. I mean, listen. If I were to tell you, hey, you're going to have a Sunbelt team go 42-20, be 23-7 in the regular season, but they're not going to host. You'd be like, what the hell? Like, that's not feasible. And, if you host, your draw is going to be different. You got the home crowd behind you. It makes a difference. Like I said, those getting eliminated very early, I think, cost them a chance to host. They were ranked a lot of the season. 16 games in a row is freaking impressive. Like, any way you want to look at it. But yeah, great season. Not the ending they wanted, not the ending we wanted.
No,
because I think if they had gone further and hosted, they probably would have had the best chance. But like Seth said and like Dom said, you put them in the NC State regional, I would have put money on them to get out of it.
Yeah. I would have too.
Texas and Texas A&M is just
a bad draw. Absolutely.
Yeah. What about just quickly? I guess at that point that wraps that up. We'll go back to this setup here. South Carolina firing their coach after a regional appearance. What do you think about that? Now, apparently, for what they're accustomed to or they think they should do. They thought this was a down year, and they, still made it to the regionals. But some of their fans have said something along the lines of, "Oh, it was time." I was like, "Oh man, it's kind of rough to hear that you made regionals and
well,
you're gone."
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough baseball conference, though. So I mean, I guess you recruit and you put money into kids and you expect more.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But I guess I'd equate it to it's like making a bowl game and then getting fired after that, which I guess it's happened, I'm sure, but I can't think of anything real recent off the top of my head.
There's probably more to it than what we actually know.
Yeah, so they were the number 2 seed going into what I thought was the easiest regional to get out of.
Right.
Actually, if you would have said, "Hey, do you want to put money on who makes it out of that regional?" I would have said South Carolina.
Yeah.
Expectations are expectations, right? Like we talk about this all the time with App State football. There's people giving money. If you're not doing what they think you should do, you're probably not going to have a job.
Right.
Good point. Very good point. All right, so before we wrap up, we said we'll come back to that thing that we were touching on earlier because it has to do with more than just baseball. But as far as the NIL thing goes, you're talking about just like Gary, the coach at Coastal, or previous coach now at Coastal Carolina, talked about, you've got essentially a free agency market every single offseason. And it doesn't even have to be an offseason, right? It can be like right at the end of the season, they just say, "Hey, I'm going somewhere else." Or as he alluded to, you can be real close to like, "Hey, all my scholarships are accounted for. We've got our recruitment commitments." And then some kid goes, "Hey, you know what? I know I got a scholarship from you guys, but someone offered me $200,000 to go play over here. I'm just going to peace out." So my thought process on that is where Marv says it's killing college sports. And I agree, because here's what it's going to do, right? Usually, and in the past, you had a couple years where you had some young guys. They had to get experience. They had to get the playbook down. When you're talking about football, or for baseball, they had to learn some of the intricacies of the game at the college level. But you're going to help develop them. You're going to have these guys gel. They're going to know each other well. They're going to respond better because they're a full team. And you're not even going to have the same team every single year now. So you're talking about a team. We talked about South Alabama, right? Maybe making some strides to continue to get better, get back up there. What if 7 guys from the team this year leave for whatever reason? It doesn't matter if it's NIL related or not. Now you're coming back into next season. You don't even know what you have.
Yeah. Because
these guys don't even know each other. They haven't played together as well or as long. And I think that's even more important in the basketball and football realm, where you really have, a lot of guys touching the ball from one to another. In baseball, you might have third base throwing it to first, but you don't have as much of a team aspect, but it still seems like it's going to be important across the board, right?
I mean, listen, cohesiveness is super important in sports, whether it's so let's look at the microscope of App State football, right? Having consistent coordinators from year to year, super important. You get a guy like a Joey that you get to come in and he blows up. We were all pretty freaking nervous at the end of the football season, like, man, what's going to happen? NIL comes into play. We all know that there was colleges offering him a lot more money. So even in baseball, if you want to think about, hey, a third baseman's a third baseman, right? But yeah, that's fine. But like, how does he play with the shortstop? Where does he fit into your batting order? Like, all that stuff matters. It would be interesting if we kept a tracker from like today forward of all the guys in the Sun Belt that left and all the guys that came in, and see the impact they made. It's going to be, it's a trickle down effect. I think it affects football more than anything. Probably basketball second, baseball third. But it changes the dynamic of your team, your program every single season. Because if you do a great job recruiting, you have to recruit that same kid every freaking year. Yeah. You sign over once they sign the LOI.
It's terrible. It's a hard way to live.
Yeah, it's the coach's job today is not enviable. I mean, it never was. There's a lot that goes into it, but having to recruit your own players has to be the most frustrating thing on the face of the earth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As Robert Bennett says, I hate it, but it's all about the money, and it seems like that's true. And we've heard those stories, right? Recruits are walking in now and essentially having their parents be like, "How much are we going to get for him to come here?"
Yeah, what's my NIL opportunity?
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing that they're talking about now, and this affects baseball as well as football, but this is really coming from the football aspect, is the elimination of walk-ons. So essentially, all of your players would now be paid as a kind of employees, but you're not going to get the walk-on capability that you once had. And guys that would possibly walk on somewhere are now going to get paid to come play. So to me, that's taking from the have-nots more, right? Because why would I go play somewhere else where I'm not going to get paid as much? I don't even have to walk on here anymore. They're going to pay me.
Yeah.
And now you're saying, people like to say it's a level playing field with that. It's not level at all. You know what I mean? Like it should be. That's the core of what they wanted. It's a level playing field, because now you can offer somebody whatever you want. Well, we know that that's not the case. Like, you've got private schools with a whole lot more money, like Liberty and Tulane are going to come out of left field all of a sudden, like they have been, and been really good, because they can offer kids more money than your state schools. Like literally every team in the Sun Belt can. I mean, James Madison is doing well right now because they're taking so much money from their own student base. But when does that run out, or how does it sustain? Because it can't sustain.
It doesn't for certain schools. I mean, it's kind of the issue I was talking about. It's like, are you bought into the program, or are you bought into the promise? And those are two really different things. It's the death, man. It's once again, you can't blame kids for taking the money, but what happens if you take the money and shit doesn't work out, when you could have been with a program that would have taught you the right things, the right coach, set you up with the right opportunities later on in life? Because let's face it, like, as a college athlete on the field, there's opportunities, right? But you get connected with the right people, there's other opportunities outside of football. I just there's no loyalty anymore. It's all about what's in it for me, what's in it for me, what's in it for me.
Yeah. That's the sad part. Neil had mentioned App and Nebraska specifically being two teams he thought of when talking about being built by walk-ons. You've got Texas A&M, where they're known as the 12th man, famously put all those walk-ons on their kickoff team a couple years ago. I know that famous clip when they get the crowd going crazy because it's all walk-ons who are. I mean, those moments, that's college football, right? History and traditions like that. It doesn't exist at the pro level. They can't do it at the pro level for many reasons, but we do not want to tear this apart from the inside. It's what makes it great. You're talking about NCAA 25 football game. It's going to have all kinds of stuff Madden doesn't have. Why? Because pro sports don't have that stuff. It doesn't exist. And that's what makes college great. And Artie's got a great point here. He says that's why the pros give multi-year deals, create a stable and cohesive core, and then add to it. That will be a lot harder now in college, and it's almost impossible at this point. I think along the lines of what you guys have said, TJ Corman from the football podcast, the former player himself, absolutely agrees with the three of us. I think, Seth, you agree with this.
Yeah.
You can only get one transfer. You can't just do it whenever you want for whatever you want. You committed to somewhere, like Marv said. You've developed a relationship for a reason. It wasn't, hopefully you put some thought and some research behind your decision to go to a school for 4 years. If some extenuating circumstance happens, as in the guy who helped bring you there or the woman who helped bring you there up and leaves for more money at another job, absolutely, it is your right. And hell, it's your responsibility to go find that next person that's going to be for you. Maybe it's the coach that comes in, but you have the ability to move out at that point. That would be one of those things like, you hope it doesn't happen, but there's probably going to be some kid where that happens twice in 2 years, right? Yeah. It's just the life of like a G5 player in all likelihood. So
two things real quick. I hope they put a function in NCAA football where if you recruit a kid and he plays well, you lose him. You got to recruit him.
Yeah.
Real life. But I wish that the NCAA, in their infinite wisdom, which is finite because idiots. You should put a cap on what you can pay a player. So then if you have a guy that is a next level talent, and if you say, hey, the max you can pay a college football player is $100,000 a year, if all things monetarily are even, where do you want to play football?
Right.
And you get back to do you believe in the coach? Do you believe in the culture? Do you like the city? Do you believe in the academics? That should still be important, and right now it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. 110% agree with that. It comes back a little bit to Gary's interview after the Coastal Carolina loss when he's talking about how these kids should be kind of made to save money because they don't know what they're going to do with it. That was one of the only things I kind of disagreed with a little bit. You want that to happen. Sure. You want them to make smart financial decisions for their future, but that's going to fall on the parents and that's going to fall on the school that brings them in. I don't think that's a thing that the NCAA should ever get involved with. You should not put rules and regulations on it, but you should have people that are advising these young kids what to do with your money so that it lasts longer. And you're not just going, I just made $100,000. I'm going to go buy a $75,000 car with it. Not a smart financial decision, like
financial literacy should be a freshman entry-level course at every college, and it's not.
Well, and let's be honest, my mother teaches some of this stuff in a high school level. It really start at the high school level before you even get into college, because at that point you're kind of on your own. Hopefully you've got at least some type of, my mom has kids in class who can't even write a check. Like 18-year-olds, 17 and 18-year-olds don't even know how to write a check. You don't need it as much these days. Sure, I understand that. But you better be able to write a check.
No, it's like I said, I wish we could keep a tracker on it. And Dom, I'm going to put that on you because I'm damn sure not going to do it. But yeah, let's track baseball ins and outs. Players to go in, players to go out. We'll probably never be able to track their NIL deals, but just look at how it changes a program on a year-to-year basis.
Did you just give me homework, Marv?
I did. I gave you what to do. Sorry.
I got a lot of those with this move. Two quick things before we get going. Two things from Artie. NCAA football left off our stadium's entire upper deck in the game. Come on now. We just signed a $12 million naming right deal last week. Yes, the largest in the Sun Belt. Texas State now owns the largest naming rights deal in stadium history as far as Sun Belt teams are concerned. It is disappointing to see their entire upper deck was left off. Stack silver, young people, $100 from every paycheck if possible. You'll hedge inflation and keep its value over time. There's your financial guy. You want some financial stability? Talk to Artie Cat. He will let you know what you need. And we'll end with this because I love it. Artie Cat says, fantastic season of shows, y'all. Can't wait until next season. And when we're talking about the Bobcats in a regional, stay safe and have a great summer. We won't be gone long. These guys may end up on some football stuff too with Corman. We're going to have a lot of stuff. We've got a special guest we're on the work up on for the Warhawks. So we'll have a football player from the Warhawks on here shortly for you guys. But there probably will be at least a week or two hiatus as this move commences. And we get to enjoy our summers a little bit here. But I do also want to say thank you to the two of you very much for doing this with me. It's been a ton of fun, a blast, and been
a lot of fun.
Yeah. Hey,
we'll just keep it rolling, man.
We'll see you in a few weeks.
Yep. See you later.
All right, boys.